Clever has probably said it 1,000 times. The movies just aren't as good as the books. In many cases, this is true. In the process of transposing a work from the page to the silver screen, much of the essence of the story can be lost. Things like inner monologue, character development can go unnoticed. However, one main element differentiates movies from their literary counterparts in a positive way: that their background music. In the early 1900s, movies started introducing music in order to supplement the visual elements, and since then, we haven't looked back. Today, we are here to discuss how music has impacted film historically as well as in the more modern era, and to take a look at just how much of a role music plays in our appreciation of film. The first films started being shown in cinema in the very late 1800s, and at this time, lack of elaborate technology meant that they were all silent moving pictures. To cover up the noise of the crowd and loud projectors, someone would be hired to play piano accompaniment to the silent scenes unfolding on the screen. It was an odd combination of the pre-recorded, same every time scenes, unwinding from the projector, and constantly changing accompaniment, very much open to the individual artist's performance and mood. They were often given very little direction on what to play, but as a rule they generally matched the music to the mood of the events unfolding. For example, accompanying a sad or scary scene with minor or diminished chords. And more upbeat or happy scene with equally upbeat background music. From this, we gain our first inklings of just how much of a role music can play on our perceptions of an event. Aaron Copland, a classical and film composer of the 1900s, detailed 5 ways in which he believed music influenced film. The first, he said, was to help create a time and a place. Using music that is reflective of a certain time is an extremely effective way to remind your audience of the era in which the story is transpiring. The second is to underline something psychological, and the third highlights the idea of continuity, moving from one scene to another, or a flashback or montage, and using the same music to show that the scenes are interconnected. Another idea is that of finality, using triumphant music to signify that a resolution has been reached. And the fifth and final way is as a silence filler. There are 2 types of film music, the soundtrack and the score. Soundtrack music is previously composed songs by other artists, which have been taken for use in the film, but were not created with the purpose of being used for it.
Somebody once told me the world is gonna roll me. I ain't the sharpest tool in the shed. She was looking kind of dumb with her finger and her thumb in the shape of an L on her forehead.
This is contrary to a film's score, which is music, often instrumental, that has been written specifically to convey the emotions that go with the scenes being shown. There are pros and cons to both situations, but as a rule, it is the film's scores that are more relevant. The category of Best Original Score is awarded every year at the Oscars to the film with the best substantial body of music in the form of dramatic underscoring written specifically for the film by the submitting composer. However, the category of Best Original Song is a crossover between score and soundtrack. It honors an actual song by a well-known artist, except the song was written specifically for the film. For example, this award is currently held by Sam Smith, a well-known musician in his own right, who was commissioned to create an original song solely for use by the James Bond movie Spectre.
I've been here before.
Today, the main purpose of music in film is to conjure a certain mood in the mind of the viewer, a mood that complements the images that are being displayed. The best scores are the ones that reach the audience just below the surface of their awareness, not impeding their understanding of the movie, but leaving an impression upon their subconscious. Another section of the score are sound effects, also a seemingly straightforward thing, sounds to describe what is happening, but the effects they have upon the viewer are hitting just below the subconscious. For example, a study by the University of California determined that non-linear alarm sounds, noises made by animals in nature to alert those around them to danger, are being used by filmmakers to give the same message to the subconscious of their audiences. For example, BBC compared the straining strings and overblowing brass in the score of Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho to noises of panic in nature.
I just met you, and this is crazy, but here's my number, so call me maybe.
Another useful function of music as a tool is in its recognizability. Take, for example, a theme song. In most cases, listeners can identify the theme song to any well-known film within seconds, without any context given. This unrelated music can now conjure up emotions and feelings linked to those given when viewing the actual movie. What's the first thing you picture when thinking of the movie Jaws? Most likely, it's a scene of the shark moving ominously through the water towards us. However, what would happen to that same ominous scene if the background music was removed? An experiment by a PBS special featuring Richard Dreyfuss and John Williams showed that without the background music, the scene simply looks like a few men on a boat, trying to catch a large fish, with large silences in between their actions. Absolutely all the dramatic tension created through the scene is carried in the music. It's the same as the famous shower scene in Psycho. Would it have any of the same gravitas without the screeching background sounds? Jaws is a good example of how a movie score can be almost more well-known than the movie itself. When asked about the movie, most people will immediately recall the foreboding, accelerating rhythm between two notes that marks the shark's impending arrival. Interestingly, upon looking at the score for the theme song, the two-note pattern, alternating between an E and an F, is actually a three-note pattern. Two D notes at the end of the piece are reportedly supposed to signify the bite of the shark, an example of how literally the score can adhere to the story. However, the mainstream audience would no doubt have no idea about the actual musicality of it. It reaches us subconsciously and is just one example of what a powerful tool main themes can be, in sticking in the heads of listeners and therefore forcing the movie to stick in one's head as well. This brings us to the interesting question of if background music causes us to visualize a scene, or if we only associate the music with a specific scene because we are exposed to them together. To test this question, we recruited several groups of students and played them several pieces of film music, with no contest, then asked them to visualize the sort of scene that might be happening in it. The first song we used was A Window to the Past, a sample from the soundtrack to Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban by John Williams. In it, Harry and a teacher, Professor Lupin, are walking through the forest, as Lupin tells Harry memories he had of Harry's parents before they died. The scene is not necessarily sad, but reminiscent and pensive. In these experiences, we asked our subjects 3 questions in order to trigger different sorts of visualizations. What do you visualize happening in a scene with this background music? What kind of mood does this piece of music convey? And if you were a character with this background music, what would you be doing? We analyzed the responses and collected the more common and more interesting points made.
Well, different options, but I feel like it could just be like a landscape shot, like I'm picturing like rolling hills and mountains and like just like an intro.
I imagine like a princess walking through like the forest or something.
Like in the forest and kind of with animals and trees.
I feel like I'd be walking through the woods somewhere, just like looking for something.
I feel like there wouldn't be much spoken, not like there wouldn't be very much dialogue between characters. It would mainly be.
I picture myself floating on like a river in the middle of the woods.
Not super upbeat, so it could be sort of a concluding scene, like an ending or like a departure.
A peaceful suspense.
Of sad, not necessarily nostalgic, but sort of kind of reminiscent and
Woods and like forest and maybe
Tranquility, very peaceful. It makes me feel at home.
What's interesting is that every group of participants reported one common visualization. They said the word forest, or woods, or trees. How could music convey such a specific yet universal image? Clearly, there is a lot more magic to composing for movies than simply making it sound nice and fill the silence. The second soundtrack we looked at was from Home Alone. In this particular scene, Kevin realizes his house is soon to be under attack from burglars and is running around preparing booby traps for them. From pouring cold water on the stairs to freeze, to letting loose a tarantula. We gave this piece of sound to our listeners and repeated the questions on their visualizations.
Get somewhere. It seems like a kind of not necessarily chaotic, but sort of like crazy dash.
Adventuring, is that a mood?
There's lots of action happening in this scene.
like battle preppy. Like when
Go in
they're,
the War
they're
kind
getting
of
ready.
stuff.
They're getting ready to do something.
Feels like I'm in a chasing kind of like
The battle scene.
It's like upbeat.
excitement.
Seems to imply like someone getting ready, trying to get somewhere.
I'd probably be running away. Or
I think it was a snippet from a Christmas song. So that made me think of Christmas.
They're like pro, like something's about to happen, but it hasn't happened yet, and like getting ready.
Rush and lots of things going on.
Pre-game.
Each participant listening to film music from Home Alone described the same general theme of getting ready or preparing, which interestingly is basically another way of saying the title, Setting the Trap, although none of them were told the title of the piece. If someone asked you, out of context, if there's a certain type of music that represented preparing for something, you would have had difficulty explaining it, but there is some unknown quality that can express it, because everyone picked up on it. The final example, a piece of music from the newest Star Wars film, is entitled The Abduction, and as you could probably guess, documents the moments leading up to a character being kidnapped.
Arriving or something.
Like an ominous, like something bad's gonna happen or something bad is happening.
Something bad.
Some sinister is going down.
Yeah. It's
They're
very
like, I
ominous.
guess, wandering through the forest, just waiting for someone to pop up and just like kill.
Getting pretty nervous or, I don't know, scared for what's about to happen.
That's very important to the plot.
Yes.
Running away.
Building the suspense and like
Suspenseful.
Suspense.
just trying to
Each participant echoed the idea of ominous or suspenseful music in listening to this. They could tell that it was building to a climactic moment. This is easier to explain. The music increasing in volume and speed clearly indicates a crest in the near future. However, if you asked the Bluers to explain why they knew suspense was building, they would not be able to qualify it. Yet another way that the music is acting on us below the surface of our subconscious. Another way in which music is used as a tool in storytelling is through character theme music. The official term is leitmotif, and it defines music that is repeated each time a certain character enters or is the focus of a scene. Because of this, it becomes associated with that specific individual in the viewer's mind. The main points discovered through researching music and film is just how big of a player it is. Although the actors on screen contribute to it, the underlying emotions you feel when watching a movie is the composer, working to elicit a calculated reaction with so much subtlety you are often unaware of the mechanics of it, only the end result. In the words of Canadian composer Howard Shore, music is essentially an emotional language, so you want to feel something from the relationships and build music based on those feelings. Today, we have learned this is what the best composers have done.